there, Buttercups. Your resident Teabelle here. Welcome to Hark, 'tis the Teabelle. Let's dive in for that tea today, huh? Before humanity built cities, before maps charted the oceans, people looked upward. Ancient astronomers studied the sky and noticed the patterns in the stars. These patterns became constellations, and along a path called the ecliptic, 12 constellations formed what we now call the zodiac. Before the zodiac wheel turns, before any other sign speaks, a spark ignites. Aries is the first breath of the zodiac, the warrior that kicks open the cosmic door. When winter fades and spring awakens, the first energy of the zodiac charges forward, not cautiously, but boldly. It represents courage, beginnings, and the fire that pushes humanity to take the first step into the unknown. And this week, our journey begins with the first spark of the zodiac, the warrior, the ram, the Aries. Let's talk about the rare celestial event astrologers said create legendary trailblazers. They sometimes believed rare planetary alignments in Aries signaled powerful personalities. So let's look at the triple fire alignment, a particularly dramatic configuration involving the Sun, Mars, and the star Hamel, and they all appear strongly connected in the sky. Now, astrologers thought this configuration could produce people who might become military leaders, explorers, influential rulers, and revolutionary thinkers. It was sometimes described as a trailblazer alignment, right? Now, the planet that rules Aries is Mars, and the Roman god of war. But Mars represents a lot of things: war, action, drive, passion, raw instinct, strength, and ambition. So, this can explain why the energy of Aries often feels bold, fearless, and sometimes explosive. The ruling planet, Mars, actually gives Aries its fiery reputation for bravery and bold leadership. And in mythology, Mars also corresponds to the Greek god Ares, god of war. Now, this is also a whole thing where we are the symbol of spring and new beginnings. Why is that? Aries begins at the spring equinox when daylight overtakes darkness. Nature is actually mirroring Aries energy. So it indicates the start of spring. It indicates that plants break through the soil and peek out to get to the sun. Days are growing longer, animals are becoming active, and there is a rebirth of nature. Now, while this energy is surging, right, this is reflecting Aries traits: initiative, birth, momentum, and the courage to begin. At this point, everything is beginning again. And the ram is symbolizing life bursting forward after a winter. Our winter, right? And, there's always going to be a spiritual symbol for everything. Well, there are some that are connected to the Aries energy. And this goes across mythology and spiritual traditions, okay? So let's look at the most obvious of all these symbols, which is the ram. And it is actually the primary Aries symbol. It represents courage, determination, and pushing forward despite obstacles. Now, the ram comes from the myth of the golden ram and is connected to the golden fleece. And I will definitely get into this whole thing next week because I promise you it is so interesting. But then we look at another symbol, second symbol, which is sacred fire. Now, an age of fire would represent a time when humanity enters a bold period of exploration and rapid change. Now, what does the age of fire represent? In some traditions, Aries will symbolize courage, transformation, pioneering new worlds, creative spark, and life force energy, right? And so why was Aries linked to this idea? Because it begins the zodiac cycle, and it represents beginnings, burst action, and the ignition of new eras. So some mystics imagined Aries as the spark that started the new historical cycles, right? Now, the warrior sword. Aries energy often symbolizes itself as a spiritual warrior and somebody who has decisive action. Now, what does this really mean? It means that someone's going to fight for the truth, defend loved ones, have courage in difficult situations, and cut through obstacles, i.e., the warrior sword. The rising sun. Aries is the first zodiac sign, right? So it symbolizes dawn. Now, this represents dawn, new cycles, fresh starts, and awakening. Now, in some esoteric traditions, Aries is also associated with dragon symbolism. I love me a dragon. But what do they represent? They represent power, transformation, and primal strength. Now, because the golden fleece was guarded by a dragon in Greek myth, the dragon became a hidden symbol of power and protection. Now, Mars' energy connects to Aries in red gemstones, like ruby, red jasper, and garnet. And these stones traditionally symbolize strength and vitality. Interestingly enough, as an Aries, red is one of my two favorite colors. Interesting, right? Coincidence? I think not. Now, that cosmic spark. Astrologers sometimes call Aries the spark of the zodiac wheel that begins creation. We are the first, after all. It represents the first impulse of creation, the courage to begin something new, the drive that starts everything. And it's essentially the beginning of journeys, the start of revolutions, and the ignition of change. Without Aries energy, astrologically speaking, nothing would begin. Now let's explore some of the stranger historical beliefs and astrological theories connected to an Aries birth. Now, throughout history, astrologers from ancient Mesopotamia to medieval Europe often gave Aries people a mystical reputation. Now, disclaimer, these come from folklore, medieval astrology texts, and ancient symbolic traditions. Okay? Take it as you will. So, in ancient astrology tied to Mars, Aries births were thought to produce natural warriors. Some medieval astrologers even warned kings that too many Aries-born soldiers meant rebellion or uprising, means that we were meant for battle, born for battle. Okay. Now, in parts of early European folklore, people believed babies born under Aries during storms would grow up to have commanding spirits. They were thought to bring major change wherever they went, so that demonstrated storm-born power. The fire temper omen. Old superstition claimed Aries-born children had a fire inside them. Parents were sometimes warned that if an Aries child was never challenged, they might grow destructive instead of heroic. I mean, there's a possibility. Now, the ram's luck. Because Aries is symbolized by the ram, shepherd cultures believed Aries-born people had luck around animals in wilderness. Some believed rams would naturally follow Aries-born leaders. If I ever meet a ram, I'll try. Night vision myth. A strange medieval belief said Aries people had sharp night instincts. This meant they were supposedly better at sensing danger in darkness. That makes sense. Now, the leader curse. Some old astrologers warned that Aries individuals were destined to lead, whether they wanted to or not. If they avoided leadership, life would supposedly force them into it through crises. I mean, that seems fair. You're going to get where you're going to get if you need to be there. The enemy magnet. One eerie superstition claimed Aries-born people naturally attract rivals or challengers. The idea was that strong Mars energy provokes competition. The sudden destiny belief. Ancient astrologers sometimes believed Aries lives could dramatically change overnight. Now, examples given in old texts were some like sudden rise to power, dramatic career changes, and unexpected journeys. The volcano personality. Whew. Some ancient personality descriptions said Aries people could appear calm but were actually like sleeping volcanoes. When angered, the eruption was said to be swift and intense. They're not wrong. That is probably very true. The beginning of fate. Because Aries begins the zodiac cycle, mystics believed Aries-born people carried the energy of beginnings. They were thought to be initiators of movements, revolutions, and discoveries, right? None of this surprises me, and a lot of it does make sense. So let's explore some Aries traits that we may have already referenced, but you're going to hear throughout this whole episode, so let's go with it. Some of the strengths that an Aries may have would be courageous, passionate, independent, competitive, natural bold leadership, energetic, determined, and having initiative, right? And that's all great, but everything has a shadow side, a dark side, has its challenges, right? Well, some of the challenges of an Aries is being impulsive, quick-tempered, impatient, and reckless. And honestly, that's just four. But truthfully, sometimes if you feel extreme energies, that can be enough. Now, why do Aries women often have powerful intuition? Well, let's look at some fascinating astrology facts about the deeper nature of an Aries woman, especially the mysterious side people often miss. Now, even though Aries is known for action and boldness, many astrologers believe Aries women have surprisingly strong instinctual intuition. This comes from their ruling planet Mars, which in mythology governed battle instincts and survival awareness. Alright, so instinct over analysis. Aries intuition often feels like a sudden gut feeling, instant trust or distrust of someone, knowing what decision to make immediately. Now, instead of analyzing everything logically, Aries often feels the right answer first. Okay, now the warrior instinct. So, in ancient symbolism, Mars energy represents the warrior's survival instinct. This means that Aries can often sense hidden tension in the room. When someone's energy is off, that's a thing. When a situation might become a problem, that is definitely a thing. It's less mystical and more like hyper alert awareness, and I can attest to all of those. Okay. Now, there's fast emotional processing. Aries processes emotional information very quickly. While some other signs reflect slowly, Aries may instantly think, something about this situation isn't right. That fast reaction can appear like a psychic intuition. Astrologers often describe Aries women as fiery and independent, but there's more beneath the surface, right? So, what is beneath that surface? Well, let's go into the psychological secrets of an Aries woman. They crave challenges. And what does that mean? That means Aries women secretly thrive when life tests them. Quick to act, slower to process. So true. They often make snap decisions before fully analyzing consequences. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be a snap decision. It could be that they react quickly and it takes a while for them to process whatever they're being presented with. If anybody knows this Teabelle, they know that's true. Emotionally transparent. Their feelings are intense but rarely hidden. They may blush or flinch in surprise when vulnerable. My face carries closed captioning. Okay? So I get this. Magnetic confidence. Even in doubt, their aura draws people to them. Secret sensitivity. Beneath the fiery exterior is a deeply empathetic core. Intuition first, logic second. They often trust gut instincts over careful reasoning. Boundaries are sacred. They may let others in only if they feel safe and respected. And here's the thing. All of those are very true, right? Because at the end of the day, it's not a matter of it's not a matter of wanting control or thinking they're better. It's just that there are different things that push them and make them who they are. Every subject has different um, divisions, right? Well, not every Aries behaves the same way. Some rare combinations of personality and life experience can produce very unusual Aries types. So, what are those types? Let's go with the gentle warrior first. Okay. This rare Aries type has strong empathy, quiet courage, and protective instincts. Instead of aggressive leadership, they defend others calmly and compassionately. Okay. And then there's the strategist. Most Aries are known for acting quickly, but a rare subtype is extremely patient and calculating. Some traits include long-term planning, precise decision making, and quiet leadership. They move slowly but decisively. The mystic. This rare personality expresses Aries' fire through intuition and spirituality. Some traits may include strong good instincts, interest in cosmic or philosophical questions, and having visionary thinking. These Aries often feel drawn to symbolism, myth, or metaphysical ideas. The silent commander. A rare Aries who leads without speaking much. Traits can include intense observation, strategic thinking, a strong presence. People naturally follow them even though they rarely seek attention. All right, and then you have the healer. Instead of using Mars energy for competition, This rare Aries uses it to restore and help others. This means that they often gravitate towards roles involving healing, advocacy, and protecting vulnerable people. Now, we lead into the Phoenix. Okay? Some astrologers use the term Phoenix Aries to describe an unusually resilient personality pattern. The name comes from the mythical phoenix. Okay? What is going to define a Phoenix Aries? These individuals tend to experience dramatic life cycles, intense rise or successes, major crisis or downfall, rebuilding stronger than before. Now, Phoenix Aries personalities often develop extraordinary resilience, so they may recover quickly from failure, reinvent themselves multiple times, grow stronger through adversity, and this just lets you know that, like the Phoenix, they rise again. Now, the defining trait is the ability to start over repeatedly. Just like the Phoenix, they symbolically burn down old versions of themselves and rise again with new purpose. And that's why sometimes being a Phoenix, yes, it can be devastating, but the rebuilding is immaculate. Now, not every Aries is loud, bold, or aggressive. There are some lesser known archetypes that astrologers sometimes call the quiet Aries. And these people they still have Aries energy. They just express it differently. And you'll notice that this archetype is actually similar to the silent commander. So what are some traits of the quiet Aries? Well, they're extremely observant, reserved in large groups, intense internal drive, and focused on personal goals rather than attention. So they may appear calm, but internally they still have that powerful determination, right? Why does this happen? Well, a quiet Aries usually appears when other parts of their birth chart soften the Aries energy. So, for example, Cancer influences may make them more emotionally protective. Pisces influences can create a more dreamy personality, and Capricorn influences may make them disciplined and strategic. So instead of that fiery leadership everybody knows and considers to be true Aries, their energy becomes more of a quiet ambition, right? Now, even if they seem calm, quiet Aries still have the same internal fire. When something is truly important to them, people suddenly realize, wow, they're much stronger than they look. And at that point, it's a wake up call, you know? And then we talk about a rare subtype called the warrior sage Aries. Now, this personality blends Aries courage with wisdom and patience. And this archetype is similar to that of the gentle warrior. Now, what makes a warrior sage? So traits often include strong leadership ability, love of knowledge or philosophy, and guiding others through difficult situations. So they fight battles not only with strength, but with insight and strategy. Now, how does this type develop? This personality often appears when Aries energy combines with more reflective influences in a birth chart. So these people can become teachers, strategists, and protectors or mentors. Though they still carry Aries bravery, but they channel it into guiding others rather than competing. Now, there are some abilities that astrologers say Aries people will sometimes develop, okay? Now, astrologers occasionally claim that some Aries personalities develop unusual strengths. This is not meaning that like supernatural powers. It's more like extreme personality traits, right? So we talked about the instinct to make a decision quickly. Well, some individuals seem to be able to decide instantly in a crisis situation, right? This trait can appear in emergency responders, military leaders, and competitive athletes. The fearless initiative. A lot of people hesitate before taking action. Rare Aries personalities often act immediately when they see an opportunity. The competitive intelligence. Some Aries thinkers become extremely skilled at strategy, tactical planning, and competitive environments. Resilience after failure. So powerful Aries personalities often rebuild themselves many times throughout their life. They can start over with surprising confidence. Aries individuals sometimes display a remarkable ability to recover from setbacks, start over quickly, and maintain motivation. Remember, Phoenix Aries, right? Natural commanding presence. So some Aries personalities naturally command attention when they enter a room. That's with them not even trying. And so people often perceive them as leaders, initiators, and authority figures. Crisis leadership. Some Aries people instinctively take control during chaos. This is because they can remain decisive when others may hesitate. All right, that path breaking vision. These Aries are often drawn to create things that have never existed before, i.e., the trailblazer. This can appear in innovation, creativity, and social change. Their fearless authenticity. Powerful Aries personalities often refuse to hide who they are. They value honesty, independence, and emotional intensity. And then comes the protective instinct. Some Aries become extremely protective of people they care about. This trait echoes the ancient warrior symbolism connected to Mars. Now, every sign has a shadow, okay? The darker traits of Aries include aggression, recklessness, dominance, and maybe being emotional volatile. Unchecked Aries energy can become destructive rather than heroic. Okay? Now let's look at some of the rarely talked about dark side of the Aries energy. Okay, and so let's look at the first one, which is self-destructive independence. Because Aries is ruled by Mars, they may feel like they have to handle everything alone. So this can lead to refusing help, emotional isolation, and pushing people away unintentionally. Their burnout cycles. Aries often live in extreme bursts of energy. So the pattern can be something like intense motivation, overworking themselves, sudden emotional exhaustion. They sometimes crash harder than other signs. Explosive emotional reactions. Aries' anger is often fast, but temporary. They may react immediately, say something blunt, calm down quickly. But others might still hurt by the intensity. Right? They might be still hurt. Fear of losing freedom. Aries can struggle with anything that feels like control. They may subconsciously sabotage situations where they feel trapped. Okay? All of these are true, I can assure you. And there are some dark omens that ancient astrologers associated with Aries births. We went through the good ones, now we're going to go through the, not so good ones. And there are some turbulent alignments that could signal dramatic life paths. So the Mars omen. Because Aries is ruled by Mars, astrologers sometimes feared a child born when Mars was extremely strong in the sky. They could trigger major conflicts, challenge authority, and bring dramatic change to their environment. Now, this isn't always negative. Sometimes it just meant becoming a revolutionary leader or a disruptive reformer, right? The eclipse warning. A particular eerie belief existed when Aries season overlapped with a solar eclipse. Ancient astrologers sometimes interpreted this as a life filled with extreme highs and lows, sudden turning point, powerful destiny tied to public events, because eclipses were considered unpredictable omens. Now, every sign, Aries is no exception, has the good and the bad, right? It is what you choose to do with these traits and energies and moments that define you. All right, so let's talk about some famous Aries personalities. And not all of them are truly an Aries, but they are believed to embody extreme Aries energy. Many famous leaders, innovators, and cultural icons were born under Aries, or they show classic Aries traits. So we're going to start with Leonardo da Vinci. He was born April 15th, and traits linked to Aries are his creative genius, fearless curiosity, and constant innovation. Now, number 2 is not truly an Aries, but because he was born on August 15th, but he is often cited as embodying Mars-like leadership energy. Associated traits are ambition, military strategy, and desire for dominance. Lady Gaga, who was born on March 28th, is fearless in her self-expression, has bold creativity, and intense stage presence, which is very true. Albert Einstein, born March 14th, He is often associated with strong Aries-like pioneer thinking. So he has revolutionary ideas and he broke intellectual boundaries. Robert Downey Jr., April 4th. He is resilient. He has a bold personality and he has had dramatic life comebacks. Elton John, born March 25th. He is a flamboyant creative type and has leadership in music culture. Mariah Carey, born March 27th. With her fierce ambition and unstoppable drive, she is a very good representation of an Aries. Sarah Jessica Parker, born March 25th, and she has her independent personality paired up with strong career leadership. Now, Magic Johnson was born August 14th, but is often cited as having strong martial art competitive leadership skills, and so he has that competitive spirit and energetic charisma. And Aretha Franklin, born March 25th, her commanding presence and bold artistic influence scream Aries. Now let's talk about some different situations and the traits that represent Aries, okay? So an Aries in love. Aries loves passionately and intensely. So there's that passion, spontaneity, adventure, direct communication, fast moving, and mostly loving excitement, right? But there are challenges, obviously. So one can get bored easily, definitely need their independence, being impatient, being jealous, and being restless. And that leads us into why Aries women attract intense relationships. So Aries women rarely experience what some would consider a mild love. Okay, and why is that? Well, one, powerful presence. Aries energy is bold and confident. So this naturally attracts people who are passionate, have dominant personalities, and emotionally intense partners. Their energy is rarely neutral. Okay, and then they trigger growth in others. So Aries pushes people to be braver, to take action, to confront their fears, and that intensity can feel exciting or overwhelming depending on the person, right? And there's going to be passion over stability. Aries often prioritizes excitement, chemistry, emotional intensity, and that's mostly over calm predictability. Predictability. But that means that relationships can often feel like a roller coaster, fast moving romances, or powerful connections, okay? Or all of the above. They love fearlessly. So when an Aries commits emotionally, they're all in. They defend their partner fiercely and they fight for love. But they also expect equal passion and loyalty in return. Now, what this means though is that you have to be all in because we're going to match your energy. Okay, so if you're not into it, we'll very much walk away. Now, we know that Aries energies is an energetic, confident, bold thing, right? And there are some signs that are traditionally considered very drawn to this intensity. Okay, so one of them is Leo. Now, both Leo and Aries are fire signs. So that attraction comes from shared passion, big personalities, and love of excitement. Now, another would be Sagittarius, also another fire sign that enjoys adventure. So common bonds can include travel, exploration, and spontaneous fun. Now, air signs will often find Aries fascinating. So Aquarius and Aries can build an attraction that comes from stimulating conversation, bold ideas, and unconventional thinking. Of course, we have Libra. So Libra is actually the opposite sign of Aries in astrology. And so oh my goodness, opposites often create strong attraction because they balance each other out. So when Aries brings the action, Libra is going to bring the harmony. And yes, Aries can often attract other Aries. So this can create relationships that are intense, passionate, and sometimes dramatic, given that it's two of the same. But does that surprise anybody? So what if you befriend an Aries? Well, you're going to find that they're exciting, fiercely loyal, and always ready for an adventure. So they're going to be the friend who says, let's do it right now. Now, you've befriended the Aries, but what if you are an enemy? You're going to face someone who confronts problems head on, acts quickly, and rarely backs down. Now, fortunately for you, their anger burns fast and fades fast, but I still would suggest anchoring them. I'm going to be very honest. And why? Because remember all those things that we learned about an Aries, right? You know, what's going to happen is they're going to use them all against you. Okay? So let's talk about 5 zodiac signs that Aries have historically clashed with the most. The Scorpio. Now, ironically, I have friends who are Scorpio, but something that both signs have that is that they're ruled by Mars in traditional astrology. So that means that their clashes often involve power struggles, intense emotional confrontations, and battles of control. Makes perfect sense to me. Now, the Taurus. This conflict is going to come from speed versus stubbornness. So Aries is going to want fast action, whereas Taurus prefers slow, steady progress. So obviously, this could create frustration, right? Now, the Cancer. Aries can be direct and blunt, while Cancer is emotionally sensitive. So, what are some common tension points? Well, communication style and emotional reactions. Libra. Now, remember we said Libra is the opposite, right? Which means that there is good and bad on this. So, where Aries represents independence, Libra is going to represent balance and diplomacy. Now, while opposites can attract, it can also cause conflict. And then Capricorn. This clash often centers on leadership style. So Aries is more into bold action, where Capricorn is leading through strategy and discipline. So, interestingly enough, it's just how they are choosing to commit to their leadership. Now, astrology personality isn't just your sun sign. It also depends on your moon and rising signs. Now, there are some combinations that create a very set of unusual Aries personalities. Okay, so let's look at the Aries sun and the Pisces moon. One of the most mysterious Aries types, to be fair. It's a rare mix of fire and emotional depth. What are some of those strengths? Well, strong leadership drive, deep emotional sensitivity, creative and passionate imagination, and spiritual curiosity. These people often appear tough outside but extremely empathetic inside. So these Aries can actually appear both bold and mystical. Your Aries sun with the Pisces rising. This mix creates a bold personality with mysterious energy. So these traits can be described as intuitive instincts, passionate drive, and emotional depth. Your Aries sun mixed with your Virgo moon. Okay, that's a rare mix of impulse and precision. Kind of like an oxymoron. But it really means a blend of fiery ambition and analytical thinking. So these are your bold decision makers, analytical thinkers, excellent problem solvers, strategists, planners, your intense focus, and your perfectionist tendencies. So these are your highly effective leaders because they combine action with strategy. Your Aries sun and Scorpio moon. So these are one of the most intense zodiac combinations in that traits that are common are like your extreme determination, strong intuition, and emotional depth. These are often magnetic and powerful people, but very private. Okay, so your Aries sun, sorry, and your Scorpio rising. This is also one of your most intense combinations because there's emotional intensity, powerful charisma, and a relentless determination. Can you imagine? All right, let's look at a visionary personality. Your Aries sun and Aquarius moon. So you're rebel, unconventional, rebellious thinking. Your humanitarian mindset. Your innovative, fearless ideas, and your desire to change society. So who do they become? Well, they become inventors, activists, maybe even reformers.
Okay. Now let's go with your Aries sun and your Aquarius rising. These are your revolutionary personalities. That means they may have radical ideas, the desire to challenge social norms and innovation. And if you notice, your Aquarius mixing with your Aries does provide that rebel idea. Okay. Now, your Aries sun and Capricorn moon. This is a very powerful leadership combination. So they use strong ambition, strategic planning, and relentless determination to prove themselves as focused achievers. Okay. And that's something that is both good and can be terrifying. So, something we have talked about a lot is how Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, how it's like the beginning of it, how without Aries, there wouldn't be anything else because we do the, we break that path down, right? Well, there are some theories that astrologers have about Aries and the firstborn souls, right? And so esoteric astrology suggests Aries represent the first stage of the soul's cosmic journey. Makes sense on everything we've learned so far. And this is why we are considered the pioneer soul. We are considered to be an experience seeker, a catalyst soul, and a cosmic or the cosmic spark. Okay. But I'm going to go into each of these individually so we can kind of understand the difference. So, the pioneer soul. Aries souls believed to represent the beginning of the spiritual cycle, right? So, they embody courage, exploration, and action. So, like everything else we've learned, this just confirms that the role of an Aries is to start experiences rather than analyze them. Now, we talk about the experience seeker. This theory states that Aries souls want to experience life intensely. So what do? They take risks, they explore new paths, they initiate change. So this is why Aries personalities can seem bold or adventurous. The catalyst soul. Some astrologers will describe Aries souls as catalysts for transformation. Again, based on everything we've learned thus far, and makes sense. So this means that their energy is often shaking up stagnant situations, inspiring others to act, and opening new paths. All right. Now, not just a cosmic spark, but the cosmic spark. So, in esoteric astrology, Aries is going to sometimes be called the spark of life. This isn't just a symbol of an Aries, because remember we talked about it in the symbol section. It is the belief that Aries represent the first impulse that begins creation itself. So symbolically speaking, yes, Aries begins the zodiac, and that means Aries begins journeys and Aries begin revolutions. Now, an Aries woman doesn't biologically require a different number of sleep hours than really anyone else. But astrologically, her energy style can influence how much stress she feels she needs. Okay. Now, from a health standpoint, most adult women, including Aries, generally need 7 to 9 hours for sleep. And this recommendation is coming from sleep research, not astrology. But I can attest to the fact that sometimes that 7 to 9 hours doesn't feel like enough. And I'm not certain whether it's that Aries energy, if it's just the way that our brain works, because for the last almost 2 years, actually June 11th will be 2 years, I have found myself being the grandma of the group. And what does that mean? No, I don't have any kids. I'm not married. I'm not the oldest. But what that means is I'm one of the few that will be in bed early, okay? But that's because I, for a long time, wasn't given the choice to have control over what time I went to bed. Life circumstances dictated what time I should be in bed, and other people were dictating that time. Now, because we've talked about so much of the Aries personality, right, we remember that it's ruled by Mars, which means that this planet is associated with energy, action, and drive, which means that A lot of Aries women will have high physical and mental energy. They may prefer starting the day earlier, staying busy and active, and they have minds that keep racing at night. Okay. Now, what does this all mean? This means that intensity can actually cause women to burn through energy quickly and actually benefit from the full 8 to 9 hours to recharge. Right? Now, what are some common Aries sleep habits? You might notice an Aries woman tends to fall asleep fast when exhausted, stay up late when excited about something or anxious, on the not so nice end, wake up suddenly and feel with lots of energy, or struggle to wake up with no energy because of anxiety, and sometimes struggle to wind down after a stimulating day. Now, knowing all this, what would be an ideal routine for an Aries to get good rest? Well, physical activity during the day, which means you're burning off that Mars energy. No intense stimulation before you go to bed. Okay? Consistent bedtime routine, an early wake up schedule. So ideally, what that means is that, say you get up at 6 o'clock, 6:05 in the morning, but you're in bed at a consistent time every night, right? It does work. Don't know how, but it does. And then the thing is that we know that being the first sign of the zodiac, we're associated with the initiative and new beginnings. And yeah, that fiery drive can make an Aries woman feel like they can run on less sleep, but long term, they still perform best with a solid 8 hours. I can attest to that. Now, let's look at some fun astrological interpretations about an Aries woman's sleep and dreams. These aren't scientific, but astrologers do love exploring these personality patterns. Now, because Aries is ruled by a plane of action and adrenaline, their sleep habits can be intense, if you will. So, one of them is your crash sleep. Aries women often run on adrenaline all day, then suddenly, total shutdown. They fall asleep extremely fast once their energy finally burns out. It's the classic Aries pattern, okay? Go, go, go all day, suddenly exhausted, asleep in minutes. And that's best case scenario, okay? Your midnight energy bursts. Many Aries report waking up suddenly with a random surge of energy or ideas. So around 2 or 3 a.m., their brain might suddenly say, I should start a new project. I need to solve that problem. What if I rearranged my life or my room? Mars energy is not respectful of a bedtime. It doesn't care, okay? Tossing and turning. Aries is a fire sign, okay? And fire signs tend to be restless sleepers. So what are some common sleeps of an Aries? Kicking off blankets, changing positions constantly, sleeping diagonally across the bed, and sometimes overheating easily. And I can truly attest to all of these. Okay? Everyone. And competitive dreamers. Yes, Aries are competitive. And even in dreams, are we competitive? And some Aries women even report about dreaming, like maybe about situations about winning competitions, talk about Food Network, uh, fighting villains, plenty of times, racing someone, maybe running away from someone, that's still competitive, and achieving their goals. Now, we can't forget that the Aries archetype really is the warrior. So, of course, competitiveness is obvious, okay? Now, why do we sometimes wake up at the same time every night? And here's the astrological theory on that. Astrologers connect this to Mars' energy cycles. So Aries is strongly influenced by the moon's emotional rhythms and Mars' burst of physical energy. So when these rhythms clash, Aries can wake up during high energy phases of sleep. So astrology actually suggests that Aries often wake up when their mind reactivates during REM sleep, their body senses unfinished tasks, and Mars' energy spikes in their subconscious. So many astrologers will say that Aries will frequently wake up around 3 a.m., and that is sometimes called the warrior hour in esoteric traditions. Scientifically, it's usually just sleep cycle timing, but there's that. Okay, so we talked about how an Aries woman is still competitive in their dreams, right? But let's talk about other kinds of dreams that they could have, okay? Now, adventure dreamers, okay? Adventures are about exploration, travel, running, and discovering new places, okay? Which means that the subconscious of an Aries woman is still in love with movement and action, right? And heroic dreams. Remember that Aries can be described as the hero archetype of the zodiac. What does that mean for their dreams, though? So, themes could include saving someone, defeating enemies, overcoming obstacles, or leading people. Their dreams often put them in the main character role. Now, on the flip side, though, that means, though, that if they struggle with feeling like they're the main character in their own life, they're going to be the ones needing to be rescued, unfortunately. Passion dreams. So, Aries energy is intentionally emotional. So, it could mean that they dream about passionate romance, dramatic arguments, emotional confrontations. What this all means, everything, is that Aries rarely has boring dreams, okay? Now, we've talked about how long in the sleep and how they sleep and what they dream. But what is the perfect bedroom vibe for Aries energy? Okay. Well, we know that their ideal sleep space should balance fire energy with calmness. So what are those colors? Well, you're looking at deep red accents, burnt orange, crisp white, and bold contrasts. These colors match Mars energy but still feel stylish. Interestingly enough, in a house that I have lived in, I had a I had a set of red walls with black trim. Okay, which doesn't surprise me. Your ideal atmosphere. Okay, so Aries sleep best in rooms that feel uncluttered, bold but simple, a cool temperature, as they do overheat easily. What are your key items, though, in this ideal atmosphere? Cozy but breathable blankets, warm lighting, and a few grounding plants. What is the best way for an Aries woman to fall asleep well? Well, that would be physical activity during the day, releasing built up energy, and then relaxing before bed. Why is this? Because otherwise, Mars energy will keep that brain running. All right, 100%.